Western Universalism is the DNA into which all this digestion reduces. It gets turned into this Western Universalism DNA. And Western Universalism also has organized religion as a very central part of its DNA. It has materialism. It has the Enlightenment movement. It has the idea of we are the engines that drive the world. It has language. It has frameworks and paradigms that are part of Western history and Western philosophy, into which others have to be mapped. So someone was asking me, a young person here who was asking me about a certain organization in the US, and that's one of many stomachs. The Western Universalism's digestion is through many, many stomachs, not one stomach. So there's a stomach that is breaking down Dharma traditions into an intermediate stage. The stomach doesn't go straight from food into cells. It goes through many, many stages. There are enzymes that break it down. So the term spirituality is a sort of an interim term. And everybody becomes spiritual, like in the 60s, they become spiritual, which means they decontextualize the source, and it's considered universal, and it's considered generic, and it belongs to all of us, it doesn't belong to anybody. It sounds very nice, but it's not sustainable. It hasn't been sustainable, and the book answers the question, why is that state not sustainable? If it is universal, if it is generic, if it is, for everybody, then why does this intermediate thing called spiritualism not sustain? Then because it gets sucked more into the digestive system and gets reconstituted into materialism and so on. Now, a lot of spiritualism of the 60s led to products. So on the one hand, we are against materialism and reductionism, but it led to products. Be they the tapes and videos and lectures of somebody or whatever, or be they productivity tools, how to make the human worker more efficient in the organization. So the mechanistic model, machine model of an organization where people are machines or parts, cogs in a wheel, and we have to get them more effective. The spirituality got turned into a way to sort of get more out of them. So it's not transformative. It is in the service of the same multinational, same forces that spirituality thought is trying to undermine. The same consumerism is still there. The US military, for example, well, there's a technique called Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is a technique where you achieve a state where you have dual consciousness. One is sleeping, really sleeping, and in fact snoring, and there is witnessing of one's snoring. So there is a kind of, you're not awake, because your body is really sleeping, but you are also witnessing that. So this is an old technique, and Stephen LaBerge of Stanford spent 20 years, 30 years studying it, and part of the digestion is to claim it as your personal discovery, because the Western ego rewards people who say, I discovered it. So he renamed it lucid dreaming, trademarked it, started a whole lot of institutes of lucid dreaming. He's at Stanford, important guy. So there was this whole rise of the lucid dreaming movement, and part of the same international enterprise that many spiritualists want to undermine. And the US Army studied lucid dreaming. They hired some lucid dreaming consultants to see if that can improve the performance of soldiers. So now one of the things they were teaching, they gave a contract to somebody I know who's a lucid dreaming consultant to teach soldiers in Iraq how to be more efficient, so you can get more out of the soldiers, that kind of thing. Johnson & Johnson gave a contract to a friend of mine who's an American living in France, and she studied Sri Aurobindo's integral model of the being. And Johnson & Johnson, one person she met, a lady who was so fascinated, because people have dual lives. There's a spiritual life, but there's also, I have to build my corporate career life, So this person hired her and said, why don't you give us a integral being model on how to improve our marketing? So she found that her contract was products for new mothers, baby products for new mothers. And her job was to figure out, using the model of planes and parts of being, and using the idea that there is a spiritual being in this buyer, how do we change our message? How do we change our message so we are now reaching that particular part of this being, which is very deep inside, and hook this person to our product? So whether it's the US military, whether it's Johnson & Johnson or 1,000 more, the point is that the 60s got digested via genetic spirituality back into Western Universalism. I take up as an idea karma reincarnation and what its effect is on humanity. It's a huge amount of effect, karma reincarnation. And I explain just why one thinker after another from the West, while respecting it, liking it for a while, in the end, that very generic spirituality gives way to the digestion into Western Universalism, where these ideas cannot be accepted, they cannot be accommodated, because they would undermine some very core ideas. Very core ideas. For instance, in the case of Christianity, original sin, and then virgin birth, redemption, sacrifice, all of that, as a story, as the Nicene Creed, the story that is the central story, the DNA, if you will. You take that and you take karma reincarnation, and either one will undermine the other. This is a very important point to talk about.